Hi there, welcome back to my little show or channel. Today I'm going to make a video about an issue that I have been thinking about for a while, and it's kind of a surprise. It's not about these heads. These are heads for, and there are a lot of piston and things going on here. That's a business that's got to do with some ugly stuff over there, and it's a restoration, or I should say a half monkey restoration of a Mopar 440. That's another issue. What I was going to talk about today, and with you, the viewer, is an issue about this one, a starter. That might come as a surprise because there are at least 100 videos out there about starter, how to restore them, remanufacture, or whatever you want to call it. This is not that video. I'm not going to make a full restoration of this. I'm going to tinker about why it doesn't work. This is a remanufactured starter, and it worked for a couple of years, and then it quit working, just like that. It just clicks. I hope this video will be useful for you. It's a little bit of a treat if you happen to have a starter that is restored but still doesn't work, or if you just happen to have a starter and you can't find out what's wrong with it. Everything seems to be okay, but it still doesn't run. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have use for it. This comes in different shapes and forms, but I think some maybe of this could be also general information for other brands than Chrysler or Mopar. This comes in different sizes. The length here of the housing tells you whether it is a 1.4 or 1.8 horsepower or whatever it is. I'm not sure. I haven't checked this up. I don't know which one this is. Anyhow, it's the same construction, so it doesn't really matter. So what happens with these starters? Why do they stop working? Why do they stop work when they are old? There are several reasons to it. Some of them get worse and by time, but some just stop working like that. And then you have the old hints from old-timers and guys like me, others as well, that you just take a hammer, an ordinary hammer, you tap on it a couple of times, and then it works again. Maybe a couple of times, a year, 2 years, and then you tap it again. It works. You don't need a special hammer. There's nothing magic with a hammer. You can use this kind of hammer that is maybe 150 years old, or you can use a modern one, or whatever you use. It's not about the hammer. It's not about the hammer technique either. But there is a reason for this, and this is why I want to make this video. As you know, we should try this starter so that you can see for yourself what happens. Let's do that. It's not too complicated. We need a battery. Just so happens to be that I have one here. We need some cable, and let's see how we make a very simple test bench for a battery. No, for a starter. Now you know, as you probably know, these starters are rather powerful, and so is a battery. So we have to take a little bit care that we don't make a lot of fireworks here. Just by trying or testing the starter, we will send some 40 to 60 ampere through it. So that's a lot of current. Let's see. My tray here is grounded with this cable. You see, a classical malfunction. It clicks, nothing more. It doesn't turn. So now we know. Let's disconnect this. That was a very, very simple way to test the starter. If it would have worked, don't be surprised if it starts to move around a little bit. Quite powerful. Now that didn't happen because I knew it was not going to happen. Is there another way to try to understand what's wrong here? Yeah, we can go to some extent by testing continuity. You know, we have the solenoid in here. We cannot test this and the wire inside because this is not connected to the wire of the motor. What is needed to happen is that this solenoid pushes the anchor that will connect this one with the wiring inside here. Until that has happened, there is no positive voltage to the wiring. But we can test the solenoid. By continuity, maybe you can't hear it, but the thing here is making a beep. Means there is a continuity between the wire, this connection and the wire in the solenoid. But how do we know that the solenoid is not fried? It could be like a chunk of copper. We can test it by testing the ohms to the housing and the solenoid. We have now 0.8, 0.9 ohm. And in the cable itself we have 0.2. So we have a difference. That difference between 0.2 to 0.9 is enough, and that tells you the copper wiring is intact. This copper wiring in the solenoid is a rather thick gauge of copper wire. That's why we don't have much more, and not too many windings. That's why we have only 0.91 ohm or something like that. Don't expect it to be a very huge amount of ohms. It's just about, in the average, maybe 0.7 to 1 ohm. That means the solenoid is okay. And you just heard that. It was clicking. Nothing more happened. The other thing we could check for is continuity between the housing, the first part of the housing, and the last part of the housing. And that works as well. Doesn't really tell us that there is a grounded wire inside here, because the first part of the wiring here is connected to a spot in here, which is then connected by the anchor. The other point, and now comes the most important part of this video, the other point of the wiring here is connected to this housing by a, I will show you, otherwise if I don't polish it, it doesn't show. Here you see a small rivet. I hope it can be seen in the camera. there is a rivet there which connects the housing together with the wiring. If this little rivet is rusted, then, or the connection is bad, we will not have a continuity in the wiring. So there it is. Now let's pull this apart. We don't need much tools. We just need to know how to do it, and it's really not very difficult. Let me put the camera a little bit closer so that you can see. I will try to do it slowly so that you can follow and see what's happening. Now you need a Phillips screwdriver, and when we pull this gently apart, now we bring all the solenoid out together like this. Here we have the solenoid, the rest of it, and here we have, if you can see it here, between the housing and the plastic here, we have a wire. Voila. Now we can pull this apart. It's easy to pull apart, a little bit more tricky to put it together, but I will do that as well. Oops. This is very interesting. What it is, yes, this is part of the housing here. So what happened? What happened is that probably someone has been hammering a lot on this starter to try to hammer repair it. So this housing has been hammered and moved and cracked a little piece of this housing. We will see if that is too bad. You see, this isn't rehearsed at all, so what happens here is genuine, and you're the first to see what is happening. I didn't know about that. Here we have the rest of the starter here. It only goes out in this direction, in rearward direction. Don't try to push it that way. Here you have some washers, and as I was thinking, the bushings here, they seem to be okay. I think it is remanufactured at some point. You can tell also by looking at this, it looks rather nice, so that is probably okay. Here we have the housing and the wiring. This wiring goes around all these windings and ends up here. There where we have it connected to the housing. Let's see again. I don't know if you can see it. I need to take away some. There is a continuity. Let me turn off this heater so that you can hear what I'm saying. Now I'm checking the continuity of this wire. This is a very thick copper wire. If it would be damaged, burned, or in some way to the extent that it is not working, this is a really thick copper wire. We would see it here. It's not like a small gauge and it could be broken somewhere or fried. If this one is fried, then we would see it here. And what I can see, we have continuity here, but not to the housing. Can you see that? There's nothing on my meter here. There you have it. And here to the housing, nothing. Let's see the rivet here. Nothing. This piece of copper has a continuity, but not the rivet. Here is what's wrong with this starter. Believe it or not, this starter will never work, no matter how much we restore it. If we order new coils and we order a new solenoid or whatever we order and put in here, this will never work again until we have fixed that problem. This one. Generally, what I do is I take a old file like this, and I put it in my vise like that, and I tap this rivet But I need to do it on my vise because I need to have a support here. But now the situation with this particular rivet is so bad. That is something we would do if there is some kind of problem, or there is maybe a bad connection, but now there is no bad connection here. There is no connection at all, nothing. So what can we do to improve this situation? Well, maybe we could replace the rivet here. That is something we need to do. Here it is, the rivet, the one and only. Has to be replaced now. There you have it. Now it works. We have the housing. Looks fine. It's repaired now with this bolt. The reason I use a bolt, I can use a rivet as well, but a rivet is rather difficult because it needs to make a good contact between the copper wire and the housing. If we put a rivet there, but we don't have a very good equipment to squeeze the rivet might become loose. Okay, we can do it with a file and a hammer, but if we are not lucky, the tapping of the rivet will make it not maybe making a good contact here with the housing. So in this case I use a bolt. You can use a longer bolt, of course, and then also connect a wire here to the chassis or to the engine, so you have a very good earth here. We don't do that now. So what we do, we put this thing together, and this part is rather straightforward, it's rather easy, goes in there. We have the rear part. Here you have some shims. They go like this. More or less. But now comes the funny part, and that is this ring here. What this ring does, when you pull it apart, it can be left there inside the housing here, sitting like that, or you have it on the axle here, depending on how you disassemble it. What is important is it does need a washer behind here, and this is not a metal washer. This is a washer of some other kind of insulation material to be there, and this part can of course not be mounted this way, so it will make a short, but it has to be mounted this way to safeguard a short. It doesn't go here, it is being assembled here in this direction. The use of this is to pull apart all the coals here. We put it inside there like that. A plier, we put back. This is the way I do. I pull away the springs, otherwise you have to struggle with 4 springs at once. The springs need to go and contact with the copper coal here. I don't know what you call them. Well, this would be good. So what happens is this is mounted here in the housing. When we pull this in here, it will push this ring down here, and that's where it will rest. While the starter is working and operating, that doesn't harm anything, but this is just to be used now to pull apart all these holes. That's what it looked like. We don't disassemble this anymore. Here is the thick gauge of the solenoid wire. We don't do anything about this, absolutely nothing, just put it together. It goes together like this. It should be a spring here because of the spring in the solenoid. Not in the solenoid, but in the housing there. Let me show you. Here you have it. Goes together like this. And then like this. There you have it. Works perfectly fine. We just need to use a screw here. It looks like this. Then the housing. Don't forget this screw here. This little screw will put together the copper wire there and the winding in the housing. It fits only in one way. Looks fine. Remember, this little piece of metal is missing now. But it looks like the housing is anyway centrating rather good. Might work, I think so. Now it's time for this one. There it is. The shims. Now, will it work? sorry for that. Back to this business. Now to the most interesting moment. I have to push down here. So, there you have it. The starter works, and well, I wouldn't say it is restored, it's just repaired. So now within maybe an hour, 45 minutes or so, we made a fast diagnosis of it and repaired it here, and now it works. So this will be fitted to the 440 I'm restoring. Thank you for watching. Bye.